All right, this is the Wisconsin Lighting Lab WiLLcast. My name is Adam Rupp, and my very special guest today is Matt with Excel Engineering. Matt, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Matt, let's dive in. Give me a few background details on Excel, and then what your role is within the lighting and electrical department.
Well, Excel is kind of one-stop shop for all engineering needs under one roof. We have everything from architectural, structural, civil, process, MEPs. I work under the electrical department. We also have a precast division, and so I've been there for 12 years this year. Busy. We have about 200 employees.
Oh wow!
Yep, and we kind of have been growing quite a bit. A couple of building additions since I've been there, and really a great company to work for.
That's awesome. And what does a typical project look like? I know you guys do a lot on the food processing side of things, and I know you serve a number of different end markets. But when a end user comes to you, what are they really looking for Excel to do?
So we do a lot of different projects. Pretty much, you name it, we've done it or we'll do it. A lot of times, our biggest money maker, I could say, is the food industry. A lot of dairy plants.
We are in Wisconsin.
We
right?
are in Wisconsin, right? A lot of cheese being made, so we thrive on that. But yeah, that's kind of our bread and butter. But we do everything from retail, hospitality, other commercial office buildings. But mainly, like I said, it's mainly the dairy industry that we really kind of thrive on.
And when a customer comes to you, they're really looking, as you mentioned, for a one-stop shop. Mm-hmm. So you guys have an electrical team, a mechanical team. I'm sure there's structural teams. I know you do some IoT and controls type things as well.
Right.
Within the electrical department, is that where the lighting team kind of also resides? And at what point in the process does your crew kind of take over that silo within the job?
Yeah, so typically it's really a good aspect from an owner's perspective to be kind of under one roof.
Yep.
We can walk down the hall and contact the architect if there's any issues or questions to be had. So that really is a positive aspect. The lighting design is under the electrical department.
Okay.
I'm kind of one of the lead lighting designers or electrical designers, and yeah, so that's all done under our department. And like I said, it is really great to be a one-stop shop. So owners like that, where they don't have multiple clients to attend to and different firms to kind of keep things in line. So.
And when you say owner, you mean the end user of the product, so the person building the facility or expanding their facility, the person, the more or less the person that's hiring you guys. Okay.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Got it. And within electrical, there's a few different components within that. Lighting is one of them. How much do you get involved on the power side of things and making sure that the customers, power is clean, and working with the utility companies and making sure whatever electronics are plugged into the system are operating within kind of that specification? Do you do that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll work with the utility. A lot of times they're greenfield sites or new buildings, and many of these projects are big buildings that will require multiple electrical services. So obviously the utility has to be made aware of that, and we kind of take what the owner's wants and needs are, electrically speaking, kind of do some calculations, obviously, and determine, let's just say there's a building with multiple services. We'll take those requirements and distribute power accordingly to handle the owner's needs.
Mm-hmm. So really, there's a pretty major project management role as well. So it's not just technical side, doing layouts, doing designs. You guys are really helping manage the overall scope of the job.
There's a lot going on in the background as well. Correct.
And from a regulatory standpoint or building codes, that can vary state to state quite a bit. And I would imagine, given that you guys are kind of headquartered in Wisconsin, you know a lot about that market. But you also have licenses in all states
all
as well.
All 50 states, correct.
So I know you're headquartered in Wisconsin, but do you work on projects outside of Wisconsin as well?
Absolutely, yeah. And obviously their codes do differ from state to state. The biggest one that we are dealing with, I guess, in the lighting side is the IECC, the International Energy Conservation Code, and that really differs. We've seen the most change with that from state to state as of late. because some states are adopting more stringent energy codes compared to others. So that's really been the not headache or hiccup, but a lot of work goes into that to make sure that you're abiding by those codes.
Okay. And on the lighting design side of things, what are you guys looking for in products and in manufacturers and controls? It's our goal as a factory, and then a lot of the people that support our products in the supply chain. Kind of business 101 is to make it easy on the folks that are specifying our products and purchasing our products. But how can we as a factory make your job easier?
Well, number one, honestly, is quality, and we want to spec fixtures that are going to last, they're going to work right away, that you just have a good feeling about, have used, they're tried and true.
Yep.
That's really the biggest thing. The next thing with a lot of our projects and owners, they're obviously, like any owner, will be concerned about cost. They don't want to overspend.
Sure.
There's obviously always a budget, and that's something to take into account too. But you really you get what you pay for.
There's a fine line, right?
There really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a fine line, but quality would be the number one thing. And if you haven't heard of a company, maybe you're not. Stay away from that.
Yep. And we do the same thing on the component side. Is number one, vet our vendors as much as possible. Mm-hmm. And it's funny that the longer I do this, the more the idea that one person's product is another person's component, that really rings true. Where in our mind, our engineering, our products are a light fixture. In your mind, that's a component within the overall building that you're designing. Right. So it's those kind of first principles of quality and vendor relationships and making things easy on people that are working with the products, I think, really rings true at all levels.
Right. There is a lot more that goes into it. It's, the lighting is just one aspect
Absolutely.
of the entire building.
Yep.
When it comes to, producing construction drawings. So, but yeah, it really it comes down to quality and things that you trust and a warranty and things like that.
Yep. So within the engineering silo at Excel, I guess let's talk specifically about the electrical and lighting department. What types of engineers or engineering disciplines are on that team? It could be a position or a background, or what does that team look like?
Well, we have a couple of electrical engineers licensed. A lot of guys we train, on hand. We have all of our team does lighting. All of our team does power distribution and stuff like that. But I guess you could say that a couple of people are specialized in lighting, and whereas other guys are more towards the power distribution or low voltage. We just hired a guy that kind of specializes our low voltage and telecommunications division. So, but ultimately, we all kind of do everything.
Yep.
Our whole team. We got a crew of 12 guys and gals in our department alone. So
cool. And you and I collaborated on a project a few months ago where we hired you guys to help put together a specification for some of our sports lighting jobs. Mm-hmm. And we had a focus on power and clean power, and we really, for us, with some of these mission critical applications that we work on, whether it's sports or high mast or airport lighting, infrastructure lighting, that type of thing, we found out a couple years ago that's really important for us to have a holistic view of the electrical system. Mm-hmm. But in terms of protecting lighting equipment, what do you see as the fundamentals of that, starting at the transformer and then the distribution panel and then maybe at the pole itself and then on board the fixtures? When your team is designing a system, what are the things that you require to be in that specification?
Well, typically we'll always have an SPD on the incoming service, which in typical it'll be a switchboard, or if a smaller application, an I-line panel or something like that. But always have a surge protection device on the incoming. And then as you branch out from there, depending on what kind of loads you have on, like I say, a panel, you'll have an SPD on that panel as well. When you brought up the project that we kind of helped you with, at the pole level, we also had another smaller Type 3 SPD at the pole to protect those components within each of those poles. So, and included with that design, we had a lot of lightning mitigation. ground rod down to earth and stuff like that. So really, you're trying to protect those components in the whole system, really.
And how does that differ with new installations versus retrofit applications, where the existing electrical and conduit is there? What will you guys do from a part standpoint or product standpoint to help protect retrofit applications with existing electrical infrastructure?
Well, there are things you can do. Obviously, one of them, a lot of times we'll go into existing facilities and see that there is no surge protection devices whatsoever. So, and that's something that you can add on easy enough after the fact, and add some additional protection. Again, to go back to the project we helped you with, there was some fusing involved.
Sure.
So, stuff like that. There are after. You don't see it too much, but there are things you can do to help mitigate surges and things like that, and help protect the system overall.
Okay, cool. Well, in the food processing market, specifically, the lighting in that space, what are you guys looking for in a product? From a compliance standpoint, might be lumen output. When you start to look for products to specify, what are the main ingredients that you want?
Sure. A lot of times our environments, when you're introducing these now LED fixtures, are wash down rated and fully gasketed. They got to be able to take on water. The other aspect is, I guess you could say NEMA 4X rated, whereas you're introducing some chemicals, some cleaning chemicals. So the other aspect of that is hose down, whether it's a higher pressure hose or not. If it's 20 feet in the air, it's probably not going to get hit too hard with a hose, but those are all things to take into account. NSF ratings, certain ratings like that in those environments is important. Lumens per watt have been going up like astronomically, which is great, which only helps the overall wattage consumption go down. So it really is fantastic with the LED, getting into LED world, and things are making it easy for us and better for everyone, really.
Have you guys done anything with remote drivers or remote power, or are typically the products that you specify, do they have onboard drivers and power at the fixture?
Typically they're on board. If there's a need for remote, doesn't happen often. Usually it comes down to the size of the housing itself, if it needs to be a remote. A lot of times you'll see like decorative fixtures have a remote, but there's really not a whole lot of reason to have a remote driver. If you're getting to the fixture, which is less and less nowadays, it's so rare that there's really not a reason for it. But if you did, I suppose it wouldn't be too far away.
Okay. And then spec sheets, product support documents. If you had to ID a few things that maybe bad spec sheets would have versus good spec sheets when you guys are going through product options, really what do you want to see on those cut sheets?
I guess easy to understand. I like a nice, clean, easy to understand model number, for example.
Yep. It's intuitive.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
You run across some model numbers, it's this long and it's just jumbles. So, I guess a nice clean cut sheet. Again, your fixtures that you use, often enough, and you're familiar with it, and tried and true. But a clear list of listings, UL listing, NSF, for example, those types of things. If those are kind of written right on the box, as they say, then it's heartwarming. It's nice to see that right away.
Gives you some confidence.
Easy. Right, exactly.
Yeah, and then beyond that, it could be sell sheets. It could brochures. Your owner customers, your end users, what types of things do they want to see versus the technical people on your team? Or is it just a case where when you guys put together a specification packet and more or less sign off on it, that's the vote of confidence they need?
Yeah, it really is that vote of confidence. It's kind of if you're presenting it, there's some trust in it. We're not gonna present a fixture that we don't trust or we're not sure of. But ultimately, owners like to see the look, because obviously the finished product is what's important.
Aesthetics are important.
Aesthetics is important. Yep. And then again, it comes down to pricing as well. They don't want to overpay, but you get what you pay for, and as long as it's a good quality fixture, that's the most important.
One of the terms that I hear thrown around a lot with some of our kind of partners in the supply chain is value engineering. So where there's a budget that's given, there's a more or less a general project that's approved, and then there's a cost cutting or mitigation process that goes into that. How do you guys kind of balance that fine line between saving your customers money, but also at the same time not incorporating low quality technologies into the job?
Yeah. So typically, we don't like the term value engineering. And honestly, the value is engineered up front for us.
Sure.
Is probably the best way I could put it. We're not in the business of just wasting owners' money.
Yeah.
We're taking that engineering and putting value to it and adding value to it and using best practices and so that value engineering, it usually doesn't work out well for the owner in the end. But like I said, we like to kind of put that value ahead of time and engineer it in our process.
Okay. What about technology trends in your business as it relates to lighting? Some of the components companies that I've interviewed recently, certainly there's a lot of talk about IoT controls, and it seems like there's multiple kind of electrical disciplines that are in the process of being merged right now. Where traditionally a light fixture, its job was to produce photons and put them on a vertical or horizontal plane, where fixtures are now moving into really computers or microcontrollers. Do you see IoT, say at an industrial building, as separate from lighting, or do you kind of think of those two things as one and the same? And how does the controls side of things relate to lighting versus just general building management?
The IoT thing hasn't really kicked off in our world too much yet.
Okay.
What we're starting to see more and more is the introduction of wireless controls. That I haven't really used much either because I haven't had much trust in it, but I keep hearing really, really good things about it, especially with renovation projects. It can be, I think there's some value there.
Sure.
The IoT, it's becoming everywhere, we just don't see it too much at this point in time.
And once that kind of goes mainstream within your discipline or your market, do you guys think you'll have a separate crew or a separate team that's supporting that? I know you have an audio-visual department that maybe that's a little bit closer to what lighting is going to be a few years down the road. But do you see more of that skill set and that team taking ownership of the industrial IoT or the lighting controls, or do you think that'll still be within the electrical and lighting silo?
So I did fail to mention we have an AV division earlier, and we'll kind of put our heads together and work together on things like that. So you are correct. That would be lighting controls is a big aspect of what they do, and we have and will work together on projects and kind of ultimately get the end product together and really work together. But the lighting control aspect is something that we'll definitely both do.
Yep.
But they do a lot of AV things, and lighting control is definitely one of them.
Yeah, I interviewed an engineer with one of our suppliers a couple weeks ago, and we were discussing lighting controls, lighting technologies, wireless technologies, and it was pretty much his stance that there's plenty of technology options out there. It's just a matter of a lot of the lighting companies getting on the same page. Where there's other products, even residential things, and it could be audio-visual products or other industrial IoT products have really been using these wireless technologies forever. But for whatever reason, a lot of the lighting companies are still going in multiple directions. So he was talking a lot about Zigbee or Bluetooth mesh or Wi-Fi versus Cat5, and it's not a matter of necessarily picking one and running with it, but really understanding the application. For instance, with us on the sports side, if we're trying to put a light show together for a retrofit application, it's not necessarily feasible for the customer to run all new Ethernet cable to 400 fixtures for a minor league ballpark. So being able to leverage some of the the tried and true wireless technologies, I think is important. But I think it really has to be understood by by the specifier and by the factory, and also having factories that can help with the commissioning process, where, some of the controls projects that we've done, we try and program and commission as much as possible at the factory. And when it gets on site, all the fixtures are ID'd, both at the driver, but also in the control software. And contractors, it seems like they want to hook things up. They want to bolt them to the existing infrastructure, hook up the hot neutral ground, and then don't necessarily want to be in the geek squad business of troubleshooting things. So it's, for me, I'm trying to understand. I think in the lighting space, this troubleshooting skill set certainly has to emerge. And for me, it's like, at what level is that going to be? Is that going to be with the engineering firm? Is it going to be at the contractor level? Is it going to be, support from the factory? Is it a service contract from the factory? I guess within that context, maybe in the AV side, if you had to take a guess, where do you see that falling in over the next few years?
Yeah, I think a lot of that would actually stem or start from the owner and whether they want to introduce a technology like things you mentioned in their building. A lot of guys are, old school. Yeah. And they don't even want to think about, the geek squad aspect.
And because there's inherent issues that come up. I think they're probably right for being cautious about it. And we've actually been cautious too. We always say when we ship a product, ideally we don't see it back. It's because it's working as it should.
No news is good news.
No news is good news. And, I'm sure we've all helped friends and family members out with troubleshooting their IT issues in their computers, and it gets frustrating. So I think, I think you're right. People, I think, have had the right kind of reaction to it, especially for, sports jobs and other applications where they're hard to get to, they're hard to reach. And, we interviewed Synapse a couple weeks ago, and they're an industrial IoT and lighting company. They make a product that sits on top of a Zigbee protocol. One of the conclusions we came to is it's really more of an IT discipline. So instead of just maybe an engineering team, in at an industrial facility be involved with the project, or maybe the maintenance department, the IT people kind of need to get involved as well. I think lighting is going to get to the point where it's really not any different to commission a light fixture than it is to commission a desktop computer. And having some of those skills involved in that process, I think, is going to be key.
Yeah. The other aspect too is we can introduce certain things and bring up things that maybe the owner doesn't know about or had thought about. So it's definitely important for guys like us and to learn those technologies and have the ability or have it in our back pocket to introduce it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what other technology trends, or what other things are you guys seeing or maybe hoping for? What are you hoping for that the technologists and the components vendors and the fixture companies, what are you hoping that gets developed over the next few years?
I guess really I'm kind of looking forward to or keeping in mind the wireless aspect of things, because I don't know, I had some doubts about it, but I'm hearing things like the encryption that's going into them, because that was one fear that we had from an owner, that security, and it can get hacked from the outside or what have you. So starting to gain a little bit more trust in the things I've been hearing about it. I think, like I said, it could be great for renovation projects, and like you said, there's different companies do it different ways. Where maybe some things are wireless, but some things are still wired. So you have a lot of flexibility there. But lighting control is definitely, in general, is something that is you have to be good at, because energy codes are getting so stringent, and owners want that control, and they should have it. So definitely lighting controls is something that we'll stay on top of, and looking forward to different products and different means to get what you want.
Okay. So in the project management process, how does a firm like Excel work on behalf of the end user to help select a contractor? What role do you guys take in that part of the process?
So we have our, the contractors that we've worked with before, and it's kind of like similar to light fixtures that you've used, but ultimately it is up to the owner to select that. They'll get bids in from 4 or 5 contractors, depending on the size of the project, and it's up to them to pick what price they're willing to pay. Sure. So there's only so much we can give a couple of we could tell them a few names,
Yeah.
but that's really about it. It's ultimately up to them.
Okay. Well, anything else you'd like to add or run through?
Yeah, I guess it's just it's an exciting time
Yeah.
right now, and kudos to you guys for being ahead of the curve of the LED world. It really has been. I was thinking just the other night, it really has been quite the change to go from the old technology, HID, compact fluorescent, but LEDs. It's an exciting time.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. Well, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you
Thank you.
coming. We'll definitely have you back. There's a lot to cover on this topic.
That's
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.